Incredible. One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a classic rendition of the ever-popular 1980s high school teen film. However, what's interesting about the film is that there's much more going on underneath the surface than what meets the eye. While the general basis of the film follows Ferris, a ne'er-do-well teen intent on skipping school, one can find shots containing themes and theories relating back to early and mid-century philosophers and critical thinkers. And that's what I'm going to be doing today. In this video essay, we'll explore how theories such as postmodernism, otherness, Doxa, heterotopia, and intertextuality can be applied to Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Postmodernism can be described in many different ways, but for the purpose of this video, we'll be using the following definitions. Postmodernists can be anti-formal, anarchic, or decreative, and they are generally skeptical of many of the values and bases of analytic philosophy.
It's not that I condone fascism, or any ism for that matter. Isms, in my opinion, are not good. A person should not believe in an ism, he should believe in himself. I quote John Lennon, "I don't believe in Beatles, I just believe in me." A good point there. After all, he was the walrus. I could be the walrus. I'd still have to bum riots up with people.
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to. Yeah.
It's Ferris's complete disregard for isms and belief in the system that lead us to believe that Ferris follows postmodernist views. In fact, the entire film features Ferris completely disregarding the norms of school and society, an action that many would consider to be anti-formal and vaguely anarchic. He also spends the entirety of the film perusing museums, participating in public festivals, and eliminating that usual barrier a teen faces to living life as they see fit. Next up, we'll be looking at otherness. Otherness is the process of casting a group, an individual, or an object into the role of the other and establishing one's own identity through opposition to this other. It denies the other those defining characteristics of the same and ultimately any entitlement to human rights.
Hey, how you doing? You speak English?
What country do you think this is?
While Ferris's snide comment isn't quite as extreme as removing the entitlement of human rights, it is an act of blatant racism. By assuming the mechanic didn't speak English based solely on his race, Ferris is denying that mechanic the characteristic of being the same. Speaking of being cast aside, that's precisely what happens to Ferris and his friends when they try and break the doxa of a fancy restaurant. Doxa is referring to the various different spaces in an area, in this case the restaurant. With Doxa, there is a kind of set expectation or unwritten rules that are to be respected. For this restaurant, that would be a strict dress code and a hefty wallet.
Why did you tell me to come to? Hello, may I help you?
You can sure as hell try. Hi, I'm Abe Froman. Party of 3 for 12. Is there a problem?
You're Abe Froman,
That's right. I'm Abe Froman.
the sausage king of Chicago.
Yeah, that's me.
Listen, young man, entre nous, I'm very busy here. Why don't you take the kids and go back to the clubhouse?
Typically, doxa only comes to the front of people's minds when they are broken. Take, for example, the waiter walking by and doing a double take. In these fields, there are also people who naturally have more power and are interested in upholding the doxa at all costs. Basically, kicking our trio out.
Field trip outside, or I'm going to have to call the police.
Okay, Ferris, can we just let it go, please?
Ferris, please, not too far. You're gonna get busted.
A, you can never go too far. B, if I'm gonna get busted, it is not gonna be by a guy like that. Ladies and gentlemen, you're such a wonderful crowd. We'd like to play a little tune for you. It's one of my personal favorites. And I'd like to dedicate it to a young man who doesn't think he's seen anything good today. Cameron Fry, this one's for you.
Remaining on a similar thread to the doxa, Ferris Bueller's Day Off features numerous examples of heterotopia. Seeing that there are many different characteristics of heterotopia, we will only be using the following few. Heterotopia of crisis, where people in crisis, typically adolescents, pregnant women, or the elderly, have access to privileged, sacred, or forbidden spaces. Heterotopia of deviation, where behavior outside the norm can be exercised. Also, heterotopias are linked slices of time and truly work when people are given a break from their traditional time, which can be transitory like a temporary campground.
Twist
In our parade scene, Ferris, an adolescent, is somehow able to gain access to a privileged space, that of being on top of the float. The result is something that is completely outside the norm of his existence. The parade itself can also be considered a slice of time, as people from all different backgrounds are able to come together to experience a positive, temporary experience. The last theory I'll be talking about in this video essay is that of intertextuality. Intertextuality is the shaping of a text's meaning by another text. It is the interconnection between similar or related works of literature that reflect and influence an audience interpretation of the text. A prime example of intertextuality is the flying car scene. Hughes plays a direct homage to George Lucas's Star Wars by adding in the well-known music. Let's take a look at the original scene. Should the scene have played out without the music, it would have still been entertaining, but by adding the Star Wars tune, it brings forth the epicness and excitement that surrounded the trilogy, ultimately changing the intended meaning. Hughes also plays to the visual cues, getting the exact angle that the Death Star has in this side-by-side comparison. Philosophical theories can be found in almost anything. It's interesting to take some time every once in a while to analyze the film and art around us. Ferris Bueller's Day Off contained multiple different facets of theories, such as postmodernism, otherness, doxa, heterotopia, and intertextuality. While these are the few I chose to focus on, there are surely many more that were left unmentioned. It just goes to show that pop culture icons such as Ferris Bueller's Day Off often have a lot more thought put into them than originally expected at first glance. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned a little something new about your favorite 80s film.
Bueller.
Well, shake it up, baby, now. Shake it up, baby. Twist and shout.